I'm back making another video. I wanted to talk about something that I've recently has come to my attention, and I think it's really important to talk about, actually. It's this idea that, well, firstly, everyone's working really hard, right? To be really good streamers or to be really good content creators and to do whatever they can to get the most of any opportunity to, be successful or something, or to somehow be bigger than themselves, get known, anything like that. And it's recently been brought to my attention that China is actually doing something incredibly interesting with the way that streaming works over there. Now, it's very different. They don't use necessarily Twitch or YouTube to do streaming. They use their own streaming services as well. But what's interesting is that there's I don't even know how large of a population it is, but there's a portion of China that goes out of its way to show off kind of a falsehood as to how their lives can actually be. What I mean, it's a bit hard to explain, but essentially there are corporations that go out of their way to make people who sign up to work with their company make their audience think that they're deserving of money. In China, there's this there's this term called like face streamer, or like a chat streamer, like someone who just sits and talks, like how we're doing now, like how we're just talking. But what's interesting is that in China, they have a culture of giving money to people who just do nothing but sit and advertise to you, which I think is just absolutely fascinating. Or maybe they'll do some sort of gimmick, kind of like TikTok, right? Where they would want to do something a little more extravagant, or maybe a little more nuanced here or there, depending on what topic they're doing. But what I found more fascinating was that there's actually even companies that will pay, that will have employees, like full-time employees, working to pretend to be streamers when they're not actually even in like a house. So check this out, all right? So as you can see, this is what I'm talking about. There are people in China who will essentially just, kind of like an assembly line style, be set up to appear as though they're in their home. If you take a look at, let me get my mouse. Can you see that? Maybe you can't see it. Here we are. Like you can see, if you look at the phone right here, you can see that it looks like this person is in a house, but they're not. They're actually on a sidewalk, or maybe even like a factory of sorts. If you look, you can see there's lots of people in like rows, right next to each other. Now, I don't know how the heck their voices aren't shooting across to each other's microphones. Maybe that's why they keep the microphone so darn close to their face, so that way no one else can hear them. But it's really fascinating how, it's like catfishing in like another way. Like, so catfishing typically is when you look a certain way, or like you present yourself in a certain way, and then essentially that's not true. But in China, they do it where they make you think that whoever you're looking up to, whatever streamer you're looking at, lives maybe in a nice house, or lives in like a relatable lifestyle to maybe your own. But then what they do is they actually aren't. They're actually, like, as you can see, in either what looks like to be either like a warehouse, based on the paint coloring, or like this one where they're clearly outside, and I think it's just really fascinating how, like, in America, we wouldn't even think of this, right? And it makes you wonder if there are actually companies out there who are paying for people to be streamers, because in China, they make so much money. They make a ton of money on streaming services that, again, we don't even know about. We can't fathom such a thing, right? Which is interesting because, it's Twitch, right? Or like it's in YouTube, wherever you're doing it, whatever the two biggest streaming sites are in America, that doesn't even come close to the number of streaming sites that exist, honestly, for the most part, just to sell and, get goods from others, right? I mean, look at this, right? You could see it, right? There's like too many. These are all streaming services. All these apps, they're all for streaming. It's crazy. It doesn't make any sense how there could be so many different companies that are all trying to be pulling in that income, right? So you take a look at a company like YouTube, right? That's owned by Google, and Google is owned by Alphabet. So Alphabet gets the profits from Google, and Google gets the profits from YouTube, and then YouTube gets the profits from advertisers paying for us, the creators, to advertise for them. Right, that's generally the accepted hierarchy. But what's interesting about these streaming services, again, I can't speak for all of them, there's just too darn many, but at the very least for some of them, I know that what's going on is that some of these sites don't necessarily have a parent company, so they're working on their own, and all they can do to fund them is to have people sell. And there'll be live streams, which is really interesting. There's live streams in China where they do nothing, but essentially they just sell themselves. They just sell product. Like, it'd be like if I wanted to grab the Star Wars cup that I showed off in one of my shorts, or will be showing off in a short. I don't know. But if I want to take this cup and I'm like, hey, you want to buy it? Look how cool it is. It's got, branded merch on it and stuff, and it holds your drink good, and maybe they'll share a personal story like, oh, I remember when my grandfather, told me about the value of money and how to make good investments, and I really took that to heart, and I really wanted to put that into something that I'm also passionate about, so therefore we got this cool cup. Like something like that. And the thing is, people in China really eat it up. They really actually relate to this method of being like sold to, right? Or to be advertised to. Like in America, we think about advertising and we think, oh, well, that's not really something that's very representative of our culture here, which I think is why it doesn't really catch on. You'll notice that most of those apps that I just showed you, they probably don't look at all recognizable to someone who makes videos, in the Western culture, right? In the United States or in England or Australia, in traditional English-speaking countries, hell, it could be France, Germany, I don't know, what we consider to be traditionally West in terms of streaming. Which is why I think it's ever so much more important to realize that if there's all these people out there, think about how many employees there could be. I don't know how many. I do not know how many employees there could possibly be. But when you look at people who are streaming and you realize that some of these people are clearly doing this just to get a lot of money. They don't seem to have respect for the fact that there are people like, me and, my peers and stuff who are genuinely just people sitting in the room. I mean, I put up a green screen just to, hide my messy room. But to be honest, the truth is, there's a lot of people just sitting in the room just talking about whatever. And, we're not even necessarily trying to be rich, right? But the thing is, that's crazy, is that these people are trying to be rich. They all are given a promise of, success or like stardom, or this idea that, well, everyone's going to love you because they're going to buy all your stuff. And then they'll so this is cool. There's this cool thing in China, culturally, that I've recently learned about, where they have this app called WeChat. I've never heard of it. No intention of downloading it. You don't need it. It's all in Chinese. But there's this thing where, like, if you donate enough money to these streamers, the top streamers will actually talk to their fans and be like, oh, you're so great, lead them on, essentially, to make them keep giving the money, which is just super creepy and messed up. Like, it'd be like if, you donated, like, $1,000 to Ludwig, and then Ludwig was like, oh, I'm going to be your friend now, and we're going to have intimate chats. Like, it's weird, right? I would never expect that, I would hope that no fans of anyone live streaming who donates money would have an expectation that, or like almost a guaranteed concept that if they're the top donator, then they'll get to interact with the streamer, right? I am super appreciative of everyone who leaves comments, or if they want to support my channel by subscribing or liking and stuff. I super appreciate it. But there shouldn't, as I've talked about in another video, I have no expectation of getting to know every single person, in a deep, relationship. That's just unrealistic. But what's interesting is that in China, because there's almost a guaranteedness of the person who gives the most being allowed to essentially talk intimately with the content creator, people will donate more money. And it's crazy, right? Because if you donate too much money, or you donate like, I don't know. Like, you could don't like. There's this one story I heard where someone donated like $15,000 a donation, just absolutely insane. And they did it all just for the affection, or possibly even the hope of. This was like a guy, sad guy, who had the hope of, possibly having something maybe more intimate with a female streamer, which is really weird because we don't really do that. I mean, like, we hear about these terms of like, obviously, there's people who we call, in our space, like a whale, right? Someone who has like a ton of money and they just want to give just for the sake of giving. But most whales don't have the expectation that the content creator is going to necessarily form a deep personal connection with them, So that's just something very different, that dichotomy between American and Chinese culture. So I had to make a video about it because when I learned about this, I realized I don't know how many small creators there are who are maybe looking at themselves and thinking that they can't do it. But at the very least, they're sitting there thinking, hey, at least it's everyone for themselves, and that's not true. So that's kind of the main message of it, is that apparently, and I just learned this as well, that's why I'm making this video right now, is that apparently corporations are now having employees. I mean, this is just in China, but who knows? Could be in America also. We don't know yet. This would be, I would think, a mind-boggling realization if this kind of thing happened in America. So I don't think it's happening yet, but there have been talks of, Chinese companies looking at American streaming services and wanting to implement this constant advertising culture to America. I don't think it'll catch on, but hey, you never know. So keep an eye out, right? That's why I always say, make sure that if you're going to support someone, you're doing it because you care about them, not necessarily any product they're endorsing, right? Not because of any like half-baked assumptions that they might be projecting onto you, right? You want to make sure that if you do support someone, you're doing it, one, because you care about the person themselves, and two, you're doing it with the understanding that you're not necessarily expecting anything back unless you actually purchase a product. So I would just say, we got to be really careful, guys, because I mean, knowing what I know now that I've learned what I know, it's kind of changed my approach to making videos as a whole. We are going to be streaming on YouTube, that's going to be the main streaming place that we're going to do it. But really just, think about it. There's so many ways that companies and corporations try and capitalize on streaming. It's a new thing. There's lots of different ideas. There's lots of different potential avenues for making money. And I would really hate for anyone to feel like they're not welcome in the content creation community, or I don't want anyone to be discouraged. I want you to feel comfortable to make what you want to make and be the person you want to be. But I just wanted to point, kind of like a PSA almost, to let you know that this is out there, and to just be wary of the fact that, not only are we kind of all in a competition against each other to not only gain the attention of an audience, but also to be able to make enough money to survive. We're also now in competition with very large corporations who, honestly, there's no way we could ever know if they're there or not. I'm not trying to sound like a conspiracy theorist, but this is something that is confirmed in China, and it's very public in China, and it's not something that's even mentioned in the United States or any other European country. So maybe this is an exclusively China thing and the way their culture is, but I wouldn't be surprised if corporations start coming overseas, essentially, to maybe employ Westerners to, work for them, and the company gets a cut, kind of like on YouTube. Remember how you had like those middlemen, the people who manage channels, like when you have a managed channel, I think it is what it was called, where like Machinima, for example, would be like a in-between person between YouTube and the creator. That's kind of what these companies are doing. So I'd be curious if we go back, almost regressing to that culture of having a company operating for you. And I know we kind of have that already a little bit with the bigger content creators, but where big companies are funding unpopular people or brand new people who are just starting out in their careers. I think that if you want to get into content creation, you should do it because you have a story you want to tell, or you have something you want to bring to the table on your own terms. If you do it just for money, I honestly think you're wasting your time. And with that being said, good luck, everyone, and I really do want everyone to be successful. Of course, subscribe if you want to see more of these interesting videos where I talk about, I guess, all kinds of topics now. And as always, I'm Elwirfy, and I will definitely be seeing you guys next time.